Ronnie James Dio has been quiet since he was diagnosed late last year. He's 67 years old with a very tough guy persona on stage many of you may know about. That toughness is coming in handy now.
What did the FBI really find inside Ronnie James Dio's estate after his death? For years, fans believed they knew the legendary heavy metal singer, but the discoveries connected to his personal papers, private records, and hidden belongings revealed a side of him that almost nobody expected. From quiet acts of kindness to newly revealed letters, rare recordings, and unexpected moments from his life. These discoveries reshaped how many remembered one of rock's greatest voices. What made them so unforgettable? A small-town dreamer. Ronald James Padavona was born on July 10, 1942, in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. His parents, Patrick and Anna Padavona, were Italian-Americans whose family roots came from Cortland, New York. The family name was originally Padovano, but it was changed by mistake when his grandfather arrived in the United States through Ellis Island. Because his father was serving in the United States Army during the Second World War, the family lived in Portsmouth for only a short time before moving back to Cortland, where Ronald spent most of his childhood. At the time, no one could have imagined that this young boy would one day become one of the greatest voices in rock and heavy metal history. Music became a part of Ronald's life from a very young age. His father believed that learning an instrument would teach discipline and build confidence, so he encouraged his son to study music early. When Ronald was only 5 years old, he began taking formal trumpet lessons. He also learned to play the French horn and quickly showed natural talent. His early musical training helped him develop excellent breathing control, something that later became one of the biggest reasons for his strong and powerful singing voice. Even though he became famous as a singer, he always believed that playing the trumpet taught him everything he needed to know about controlling his voice. While growing up in Cortland, Ronald listened to many different kinds of music. One of his biggest influences was the famous American tenor Mario Lanza. He also enjoyed listening to opera, and its powerful style left a lasting mark on the way he sang. Outside music, he loved reading romantic fantasy stories, especially the books of Sir Walter Scott and the legends of King Arthur. Science fiction and sports also filled much of his free time. These interests helped shape his imagination and later inspired many of the magical and mythical themes that appeared throughout his music. During high school, Ronald discovered that he loved performing with other musicians. He formed his first rock and roll band called the Vegas Kings. As the group grew, its name changed to Ronnie and the Rumblers and later to Ronnie and the Redcaps. At first, he mainly played the trumpet, but before long he added singing to his role and even played bass guitar. His confidence on stage continued to grow, and it became clear that performing was more than just a hobby. It was becoming his future. After graduating from Cortland High School in 1960, Ronald briefly attended the State University of New York at Buffalo. He studied pharmacology and played trumpet in the university concert band. However, music remained far more exciting than classroom life. He stayed there for only about a year before leaving. Later, he enrolled at Cortland State College, but also decided not to continue his studies. In a later interview, he explained that he had studied history while also taking English courses. No matter what subject he tried, his heart always pulled him back to music. Many people believed that someone with such a powerful voice must have received professional vocal lessons, but Ronald often said that he never had any formal singing training. Instead, he relied on the breathing methods he had learned while mastering the trumpet. This unusual path helped create the clear, powerful, and unforgettable voice that would later make him famous around the world. So what did they find in Dio's estate? Let's dive in. The hidden side of Dio. As Ronnie James Dio's career continued to grow, many people believed that the dark images, magical themes, and mysterious symbols in his music were simply part of his stage performance. However, documents discovered among his personal belongings after his death painted a different picture. They showed that his interest in mythology, religion, and ancient beliefs was real and had been part of his life for many years. These papers suggested and careful study, rather than an attempt to attract attention. His personal journals revealed that he had spent decades collecting books about different religions, ancient myths, medieval symbols, and traditional beliefs. He had started building this collection during the 1960s, long before these subjects became a major part of his music. Reading was one of his greatest passions, and he enjoyed learning about how different cultures explained life, good and evil, and the unknown. His interest was not limited to one belief or tradition. Instead, he explored many ideas, searching for the stories and symbols that connected people throughout history. Among the books in his collection was a rare 17th-century edition of the Lesser Key of Solomon, an old book connected with traditional demonology and ceremonial magic. Notes written in the margins showed that he had studied the book carefully over many years. Rather than reading it for entertainment, he appeared to examine its history, language, and symbols in great detail. These handwritten comments reflected a thoughtful reader who wanted to understand the meaning behind ancient traditions instead of accepting them at face value. Other documents uncovered in his estate revealed that Dio regularly exchanged letters with respected scholars. His correspondence included discussions with a professor of religious studies at the University of California, Los Angeles, and an anthropologist who specialized in ritual practices. Their letters focused on mythology, symbolism, religious traditions, and the role that rituals have played throughout human history. These conversations showed that Dio approached these subjects with genuine interest and intellectual curiosity. He wanted to understand why people across different cultures used symbols, stories, and ceremonies to explain the world around them. Long before becoming one of heavy metal's greatest singers, Dio began his musical journey in local rock and roll groups. One of his earliest bands was Ronnie and the Redcaps, where he developed his skills as both a musician and performer. As the years passed, his music gradually became heavier and more powerful. He later joined the band Elf, where his strong voice and growing confidence attracted the attention of many people in the rock world. His performances with Elf proved that he had the talent to succeed on a much bigger stage. A major turning point arrived in 1975, when Deep Purple guitarist Ritchie Blackmore invited Dio to help form a new band called Rainbow. The partnership blended powerful rock music with classical influences, fantasy stories, and dramatic lyrics. Dio's remarkable voice gave the band a unique sound, while his love for mythology added depth to the songs. Together, they created music that stood apart from many other rock groups of the time. Rainbow quickly became known for combining heavy music with imaginative storytelling, helping shape the future direction of heavy metal. Letters discovered in Dio's estate also revealed that his relationship with Blackmore was more complicated than many fans realized. Their written conversations showed that they respected each other's talents, but often disagreed about the creative direction of the band. In one letter written during 1977, Dio explained that he believed mystical themes should have genuine meaning, rather than being used only for appearance. Draft replies from Blackmore suggested growing frustration, as he felt Dio sometimes acted as though he alone understood the artistic purpose behind the band's music. These disagreements reflected two talented musicians with different creative ideas, even though they worked together to produce memorable songs. Although Rainbow brought Dio worldwide recognition, the biggest chapter of his career began in 1979 when he joined Black Sabbath. Replacing Ozzy Osbourne was considered one of the most difficult jobs in rock music because the band's original singer had become closely linked with its identity. Dio accepted the challenge and helped guide the group into a successful new era. Albums such as Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules introduced a fresh sound while keeping the powerful style that fans loved. His dramatic vocals and imaginative lyrics gave Black Sabbath new energy and earned praise from audiences around the world. During this period, Dio also became closely connected with the famous devil horn's hand gesture. He explained that his Italian grandmother had shown him the sign as a way to protect against the evil eye. Over time, the gesture became one of the most recognized symbols in heavy metal, crossing language and cultural boundaries to unite fans everywhere. But this wasn't all the estate revealed. Stay with us, because what comes next is shocking. The hidden letters. Among Ronnie James Dio's personal papers was a legal pad filled with detailed notes about the songs on Heaven and Hell. The pages showed how carefully he tracked his creative work. For every song, he wrote the percentage of what he believed he had contributed. Beside Children of the Sea, he noted that about 85% of the song was his work. He believed he had created the full vocal melody, written all the lyrics, and even suggested the chord progression to Tony Iommi. Similar notes appeared beside Die Young and the title track Heaven and Hell. These papers showed that Dio wanted a clear record of the ideas he felt he had brought to the band. His personal diary also revealed that life inside Black Sabbath was not always peaceful. While recording Mob Rules, he wrote about frequent disagreements inside the studio. One entry described another difficult day spent trying to earn recognition for his work. He believed that Geezer Butler and Tony Iommi still saw him as the singer who replaced Ozzy Osbourne instead of treating him as an equal member of the band. According to his notes, he felt that some of his ideas were accepted during recording, but were later presented as if they had come from someone else. The diary showed his growing disappointment as he struggled to receive the credit he believed he deserved. Another journal entry described what he considered one of the biggest disappointments of his career. During late 1981, he wrote that he had discovered evidence of a private meeting involving Tony Iommi and Sharon Arden, who was Ozzy Osbourne's manager at the time and later became his wife. According to Dio's journal, he confronted Iommi after learning about the meeting. He believed they had discussed whether bringing Ozzy Osbourne back to Black Sabbath would be a stronger commercial move, even while Mob Rules was still being recorded. His diary showed that he felt deeply hurt by what he believed was happening behind the scenes. After helping lead the band through a successful new chapter, he feared that plans were already being made to replace him. Dio left Black Sabbath in 1982 and decided to build his own future. He formed a new band using his own stage name, Dio. It quickly became one of the most respected bands in heavy metal. Albums such as Holy Diver and The Last in Line helped establish him as a successful solo artist. His powerful voice, memorable songs, and exciting performances earned him loyal fans around the world. Instead of looking back, he focused on creating music that reflected his own ideas and artistic vision. The band's concerts became famous for their impressive stage productions. Huge dragons, bright lasers, and magical scenery transformed each performance into an unforgettable experience. These visual effects matched the fantasy themes found throughout Dio's lyrics and helped create a world that audiences could step into for a few hours. His shows became known for combining powerful music with imaginative storytelling, making every performance feel larger than life. One of the most surprising discoveries in Dio's home was a hidden room connected to his personal recording studio. According to his journals, he called this private space his sanctuary. The room contained a large collection of objects gathered from different parts of the world. Among them were ancient Egyptian Ankh symbols, medieval grimoires, ceremonial daggers from several traditions, and carefully arranged stones placed in specific patterns. The collection reflected his lifelong interest in mythology, history, symbolism, and ancient beliefs that had inspired his music for many years. Also found among his papers was a collection of letters exchanged with Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, another musician well known for his interest in mystical subjects. The correspondence stretched from 1979 to 2003, showing that the two artists shared a lasting friendship based on their curiosity about history, symbolism, and ancient writings. Their letters discussed books they had both read and ideas they found interesting. The correspondence suggested that their connection went beyond music and was built on a shared desire to understand the meaning behind old traditions and forgotten knowledge. Together, these private papers offered a rare look into Dio's thoughts, creative process, and the personal experiences that helped shape one of heavy metal's most unforgettable careers. The financial records. The financial records found in the estate revealed a much deeper look into Ronnie James Dio's business life. To the public, he was known as one of the kindest and most respected people in heavy metal. Behind the scenes, however, private papers showed that he handled business with great care and strict discipline. He made decisions based on contracts and agreements instead of personal feelings. These records painted the picture of a man who separated friendship from business, even when those choices were difficult. Contracts signed with members of Dio's solo band showed that most musicians worked as employees instead of equal partners. Even though they helped shape the music and performances, they received very little money from future royalties. Their pay mostly came from salaries and agreed payments, rather than a lasting share of the songs they helped create. The documents suggested that Dio wanted full control over his music and business, making sure ownership stayed in his hands throughout his career. Among the most emotional discoveries were letters exchanged between Dio and former band members who had been removed from the group. Several musicians described the serious financial problems they faced after losing their jobs. One explained that he was close to bankruptcy, while songs he had helped perform continued earning large amounts of money. Whenever replies were included, they were polite but firm. The letters made it clear that Dio believed the signed contracts had already settled every responsibility. He refused to offer extra financial support beyond the legal agreements, even when the requests were heartfelt. The estate also uncovered personal journals that revealed a different side of the famous singer. During the late 1990s, when heavy metal was no longer as popular as before, Dio openly wrote about his worries for the future. He believed that younger listeners were choosing louder music with less melody and less storytelling. Even though he noticed these changes, he refused to change his own style just to follow popular trends. He remained proud of the music he created, but he quietly wondered if people would still remember his work years later. These private thoughts showed that even a legendary performer struggled with doubts about being forgotten. That fear seemed to inspire another remarkable discovery hidden among his personal papers. Researchers found an almost finished fantasy novel called The Kingdom of the Crystal Dawn. The handwritten manuscript stretched beyond 700 pages and had been carefully edited over many years. It greatly expanded the magical worlds that listeners had only briefly experienced through his song lyrics. The pages included detailed maps, drawings of important characters, and complete histories for different kingdoms and creatures. Notes attached to the manuscript showed that Dio had secretly worked on the project for more than 15 years because he hoped to leave behind something meaningful outside of music. One of the saddest discoveries came from medical records and private letters written before his stomach cancer diagnosis. These documents suggested that Dio had experienced worrying health problems for almost 2 years before asking doctors for help. At first, he believed the pain was caused by ordinary digestive problems and expected it to disappear on its own. Letters written to his wife, Wendy, revealed that he kept many of his symptoms private because he feared a serious diagnosis would force him to cancel concerts. He did not want to disappoint the fans who had supported him for so many years. By the time doctors diagnosed his stomach cancer in 2009, the illness had already advanced. Medical records suggested that earlier care may have improved his outlook. His specialist expressed concern over the delay, while Dio's journals reflected regret. He later acknowledged prioritizing touring over his health and wished he had sought help sooner. The estate also contained many letters from younger heavy metal musicians who looked to Dio for advice and encouragement. These messages showed that he quietly served as a mentor to many rising artists who admired his career. A long exchange with Metallica singer James Hetfield included detailed advice about singing techniques and ways to protect the voice during long concert tours. Another surprising collection of letters revealed a much closer friendship with Iron Maiden singer Bruce Dickinson than most fans had ever known. Their conversations explored vocal techniques, songwriting ideas, stage performances, and the challenge of combining powerful singing with dramatic live shows. Together, these private papers revealed a talented artist whose legacy reached far beyond the music heard on stage. So what were his last days like? Let's find out. Kindness of Ronnie James Dio. One of the most surprising discoveries after Ronnie James Dio passed away had nothing to do with his music. It was the quiet kindness he had shown to people for many years, without asking for thanks or attention. Financial records revealed that he had secretly donated large amounts of money to children's charities, cancer research groups, and music education programs for young people from poor communities. He made sure every gift stayed anonymous because he never wanted anyone to know the money came from him. He believed that helping others should never be used to gain fame or praise. His financial records included clear instructions to the people who managed his money. They were told that no public announcement should ever be made about these donations. One note simply explained that the gifts were not for publicity and that no one should know where the money came from. These words showed how deeply he believed in giving from the heart instead of giving for attention. Even after his death, many people were surprised to learn how much good he had quietly done for others. Another amazing discovery showed that Dio had been paying for a music scholarship program since the mid-1980s. The program helped young people from families with very little money follow their dreams of studying music. Over many years, many students were able to attend music schools because of his support. None of them knew who had made their education possible. They simply received the chance to learn, grow, and build a better future. Dio never asked to meet them or receive any credit for changing their lives. His personal papers also revealed something many fans never expected. They showed that he and Tony Iommi had reached a deeper and more personal peace before Dio's death. Their working relationship had already become strong again during the Heaven and Hell project in the early 2000s, but the letters from his final months showed that they had also healed old personal wounds. Their friendship had become more important than any disagreement from the past. One letter written during the final months of his life showed how much his thinking had changed. He explained that time had made old arguments seem unimportant. Disagreements about business, contracts, and credit no longer mattered to him. What truly remained was the music they had created together and the memories they shared. He expressed sincere gratitude for everything they had achieved as friends and musicians. The letter reflected wisdom, forgiveness, and respect that had grown stronger with time. Among his final papers was an unfinished message that he had planned to leave for his fans. In it, he looked back on his long career and explained what his music had always meant. He said he never wrote songs about darkness because he wanted people to fear it or celebrate it. Instead, he wanted listeners to understand that darkness could be faced with courage. The monsters, dragons, and demons in his songs were symbols of the struggles people face in real life. He hoped his music would remind everyone that even the hardest battles could be overcome with strength and hope. In late 2009, Dio announced that he had been diagnosed with stomach cancer. He began receiving treatment at the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas. Even while facing such a serious illness, he remained thankful for the support of his family, friends, and loyal fans. As his health became worse, Heaven and Hell announced in the spring of 2010 that all of their planned summer concerts had been canceled. His final live performance took place in late August of 2009 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. On the 16th of May, 2010, Ronnie James Dio passed away after his battle with cancer. News of his death brought an outpouring of love from musicians around the world. Many artists spoke about the powerful effect he had on their lives and careers. Metallica drummer Lars Ulrich thanked Dio for inspiring him with his unforgettable voice, his music, and his kindness. Slipknot singer Corey Taylor remembered him as someone who performed with complete honesty and joy. Members of Killswitch Engage, who had recorded their own version of Holy Diver, described him as a true musician whose talent and character would continue to inspire future generations. A public memorial service was held at the Hall of Liberty in Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills, Los Angeles. The building quickly filled with family, friends, fellow musicians, and devoted fans who wanted to honor his memory. Many more people gathered outside, where large screens allowed them to watch the ceremony together. The huge crowd reflected the lasting impact Ronnie James Dio had made through his music, his generosity, and the quiet acts of kindness that remained hidden until after his passing. The legacy of Ronnie James Dio. After Ronnie James Dio passed away in 2010, his widow and longtime manager, Wendy Dio, became responsible for protecting his estate and preserving everything he left behind. Over the years, she carefully decided what personal papers, recordings, and other materials could be shared with the public. When questions were raised about the discoveries found among his belongings, she explained that Ronnie was a far more complex person than many people realized. She also said that some of the descriptions about him did not fully match the man she had known for so many years. According to Wendy, Ronnie was naturally private and enjoyed many interests that most fans never saw. While millions knew him as the powerful voice standing under bright lights, there was another side to him that remained hidden from the public. Even so, she believed that the most important part of his personality never changed. The man who stepped onto the stage was the same man who walked away from it. He was deeply passionate about music, completely honest with himself, and truly devoted to the people who supported him throughout his career. Questions were also raised about the writing credits connected to some of the music Ronnie created with Black Sabbath. When asked about the subject, guitarist Tony Iommi responded with great respect. He explained that Ronnie had been an outstanding singer and lyricist, whose arrival gave the band fresh energy at an important moment in its history. He also pointed out that creating music is rarely the work of one person alone. Every member brings different ideas into the studio, and people may remember those creative moments in different ways. What mattered most, he believed, was that together they created songs that have continued to inspire listeners for many years. The discoveries inside Dio's estate also encouraged music historians and researchers to take another look at his influence on heavy metal. For many years, people mainly praised his unforgettable voice, powerful stage presence, and exciting performances. However, the papers and notes found after his death suggested there was much more behind his work than many had understood before. His approach to songwriting showed careful planning, deep thought, and a strong interest in creating meaningful stories instead of simply writing songs. Researchers found that Ronnie carefully crafted the worlds in his lyrics. His fantasy imagery, including castles, dragons, heroes, and mystical creatures, supported deeper themes of courage, hope, struggle, and resilience. This imaginative approach helped his music remain meaningful and resonate with listeners for generations. One music expert explained that Ronnie was doing much more than performing heavy metal songs. He was helping create a complete artistic style that combined music, storytelling, imagination, and symbolism into one powerful experience. This approach influenced many artists who followed him, shaping the way heavy metal continued to develop. His work encouraged musicians to think beyond simple lyrics and instead create complete worlds that listeners could enter through music. One of the most exciting results of these discoveries was the release of music that fans had never heard before. Wendy Dio carefully supervised the restoration and remastering of demo recordings that had been found among Ronnie's personal collection. These recordings were eventually released as Dio, The Early Years, and Rainbow to Sabbath, the transition tapes. The collections allowed listeners to hear early versions of songs and ideas that later became part of his famous career. They also offered a rare chance to understand how his music slowly developed from simple ideas into finished recordings. For longtime fans, these releases created an even stronger connection with Ronnie's work. Hearing the early recordings gave them a better understanding of the effort, creativity, and careful thought behind every song. The discoveries also helped many listeners realize that the fantasy worlds in his music were much more than colorful stage ideas. They reflected beliefs and values that were deeply important to him throughout his life. Knowing this gave familiar songs a richer meaning and allowed fans to appreciate them in a completely new way. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.